All right, so I'm going to briefly describe the study that many of you participated in for extra credit. First of all, I appreciate you guys doing that. I hope that the experience was positive, and that there was nothing disturbing about what you were being asked to do here. Yeah, okay, so the title of the study is Examining the Relationship Between Intellectual Humility and Receptivity to Pseudo-Profound Bullshit. The study centers around a variable called intellectual humility, which is an individual difference variable. It's a personality variable, actually, that that reflects an awareness of the potential limits and fallibility of one's beliefs. Okay, so people who are intellectually humble are more likely to be open-minded to viewpoints that are not their own. They're more willing to change their perspective on issues that even ones that are important to them when they are confronted with evidence that is convincing. Um, and they have a more cautious and critical thinking style, generally speaking. That they're more sensitive to the quality of the evidence on which their views and their beliefs are based. On the other hand, people who are low in intellectual humility are more rigid, and they're less likely to change their beliefs, even when there's convincing evidence that suggests that they should. So this is a correlational study, and we first measured intellectual humility in each one of you, and then what we wanted to do with this study is extend the current understanding of intellectual humility into the domain of what's called pseudo-profound bullshit. Bullshit in this study refers to any statement that that comes across, or superficially at least, seems like it's meaningful, but in fact, it's completely meaningless. And I'm sure that we've encountered many claims like this before, that at first it seems like, okay, that sounds like there's some truth involved, and then you think about it for a minute and you realize this is complete nonsense. Actually, the statement is too vague, or it's too contradictory, or something about the statement just doesn't make sense to you at all. Now, the bullshit in this study was completely nonsensical. The statements that you read were grammatically correct, but had no actual meaning involved in them. In fact, they were randomly generated so the sentence would be grammatically correct, but would have no semantic meaning whatsoever. Okay, so we were looking at how individual differences in intellectual humility would predict uh, two things: what we're going to call the bullshit receptivity score, and then the overestimation index. So let me bring you to the study so you can get a sense of what this looked like. We first measured some demographic stuff from you. We wanted to obtain some demographic information to get a sense of what you're like. And then we measured intellectual humility using two separate scales. Okay, first of all, the intellectual humility scale, which you see here. There are 6 items in that scale. And then the comprehensive intellectual humility scale, which is a longer scale with 22 items, yes, and and it also has subscales that measure different facets of intellectual humility. So we wanted to get a nice, solid measure of intellectual humility, and that's here. After that, in the second part of the study, you responded to these pseudo-profound statements that are actually bullshit. And so there were 10 items. It's kind of comical actually to read them, especially once you realize that they're completely meaningless. But in any case, for each one of the items, you responded on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being not at all profound to 5 being very profound. The maximum score on this scale was 50 because there were 10 items and the maximum score for each item was 5. So 5 times 10 is 50. The minimum score is 10 because the minimum score for each item was 1 here. And then if you multiply that by 10, that equals 10. And that's reflected here. So minimum score is 10, which means that you're not at all receptive to bullshit, and 50, which means that you're maximally receptive to this. All right. Then we have the overestimation index, and let's go back here to explain that a little bit. Um, we we measured your confidence rating. So after filling out the scale, how confident were you that your judgments about the meaningfulness, the profoundness of these statements was accurate, basically. And so you gave yourself a confidence rating. And so what we're going to do is we're going to convert your actual score on this scale from a 10 to 50 scale. We're going to rescale it so that now your score is out of 100. Okay, like you received an actual score on this, and so we just want to change that so it's out of 100, and now we can compare your confidence level with your actual score on this. And so, let's say your rescaled bullshit receptivity score is like a 50 or something like that, but your confidence was an 80. Then now we can make direct comparisons and compute an overconfidence score, which would be 30 in that case, because 80 is 30 more than 50. So that's what we have over here. Um, and so we're the next step here is we're gonna collect the data. We've collected pretty much all of it at this point. If you're hearing this, um, we are then going to clean up the data. We're going to summarize the data. We'll analyze the data, and then we'll be ready to put a poster, an academic poster together to present at an academic conference. And if we get really interesting results, we'll write this up in the form of an APA style manuscript that we'll submit to an academic journal and see if we can get that published as well. So thank you very much for contributing to this. I really do. You've contributed to science here. Whether we get interesting results or not, you've done something beneficial for the scientific community, and I really appreciate that. If you have any questions or concerns about your participation or anything about the study, the hypotheses, or anything else that I didn't answer here, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about research. And of course, if you're interested in working with me in the future in terms of volunteering in the lab and becoming a member of a research team, then please don't hesitate to reach out either. I'd be happy to include you in a future study as a research co-investigator. Okay, so once again, thank you very much for participating. Have a nice day, and see you later.